I'm Danny Pressley, and my ancestors came here in 1870. Sevier and Sally Pressley. They were buried up in Mountain View. He raised 6 sons and 5 daughters, and Jess Pressley is one of his sons, and that's my granddaddy. And then my daddy is Jimmy Pressley. So I'm Danny Pressley, his son. All my family's dead. I guess I'm the oldest now in the family. And the Case of Raw, it was built in 1890, that building for a grocery store. Then it was turned into, they rented it to the town for their first town hall.
Really?
Yeah, for I think, yeah, for about $2 a month, I think it was, something like that. Then upstairs was a boarding thing, people got off the train up there. Then it was turned into a hospital because that building right across the street, during 1918, the flu that killed everybody, that was a hospital, and that building right across that little rock building, that was the morgue. Then it was, in 20s or 30s, it turned into a hosier mill.
The little rock building?
No, that was morgue. It was built first as a meat place. Then it turned into a morgue. Then when I was growing up, it was Pluto's garage where they worked on cars. Ed Burt's horse stable where we rode horses all the time.
Was where?
Right there where Stove and Chimney is at the river.
Okay.
In that circle out there where Pizza Hut is, that was a ring where you rode horses around that ring. If you want to start down at number 9, we can go all the way down to pretty close to Fields Barbecue. We'll cut back up Sunset Drive, where I lived at, and my teacher, Mr. Jesse Rice, lived in that house right beside White's Insurance. And then right out the street going towards town, that was Lake Gap. And right there we live on Dalton Street, and then out at Disway Street, it was President McKinley's, his granddaughter built a house there in 1910. And then when she willed it to his niece, not niece, but a nephew. And when he died, he was all in the military, all in the government and stuff. When he died, Margaret, his wife, kept it as a sentimental piece. And they had a boarding place there, and my daddy was caretaker of that house for about 35 years. And I kind of helped him there. Then they leased it out to Wrights. He was a bishop over East Carolina, 100 churches. And Miss Disway, she's one of the members that started this church over here, Episcopal Church, here in Black Mountain in 1908. And the family had it, and she whittled it down through all of her children, grandchildren, and stuff. And I met the family lived up there, and they had 5 kids. We kind of grew up together in the summertime. We had a great time riding horses and things in the valley. Then in about 90, the last era of that thing said she didn't want the house, she was going to sell it. I was able to buy that house. I kept it, I wanted a bed and breakfast out of it. And I ended up selling the house. I got all the furniture in it. Some of it was way over 100 years old. It's all in my house now. But I sold the house with a half-acre ground. I kept 2 acres. I divided it up, and they built 3 houses on it. So that's a historical house here in town. William Green built that in 1910. Kay Green here, owned 7 Sisters up here. That's her granddaddy. He built that house in 1910. And Miss Disway was President McKinley's granddaughter. And they stayed in it, and it was a kind of a boarding house. Then when she died, she willed it to President McKinley's nephew. And he stayed in it, and I think he died in 1940. I had all the annuals, and they went to West Point. I had annuals, and I sold them on eBay not long ago. And I left in the library of the house, the library of President McKinley's assassinations and all that about his life in the house. Whoever has the house now has all that information. But I kept all the materials in the house. It's a super house. I had weddings in the house and all kinds of parties in it as long as I owned the house and stuff. But I wanted it for a bed and breakfast where I could go over there. I talked to Fred up to Red Rocker about buying it. He told me, he said, no, Danny, I'm selling Red Rocker. I'll send all my people over to you. And I said, no, I don't want to open a bed and breakfast up. But the family bought it. They just had a girl, and a young girl, and they grew up in the house. And they finally sold it a couple of years ago, and it's just a couple living in the house now. It's a beautiful house. You can still see the house. I fixed the house up, everything. It was, we'd have parties in the house, weddings. And when I went in the house after all that time, it sat there for years and years. There was no dust whatsoever in that house. It sat there. Off of Sunset Drive. It's on Disway Street. In the wintertime, when you come off the interstate, you can see that house up in the woods. I wanted that somebody to buy it with all that 2.5 acres ground, where they had oak trees and stuff there, and but they didn't have back in right in the 90s. It didn't have much money to buy it, so I had to divide it up. And Bishop of Eastern Carolina, he just sat up on the porch and play a banjo or guitar mandolin. He'd sing Danny Boy to me. You could hear all over the valley because there was no Ingalls or nothing down there. But where Ingalls at now, that was there. My neighbor owned that paper, 10 acres, and their church would have her picnic, summer picnic at that field. And I learned to swim in that little creek there behind Ingalls now. That's where we played. And we'd hunt rabbits in that field. Then he sold that property, 10 acres, for $4,000. Jean Ormsby, she bought it, and she put a trailer park in there. She kept it. I did her hair in here. She kept it for quite a few years with a trailer park. Then Ingalls bought it for $118,000 from her. And that's where all that started. And they hauled the dirt from up above my house from over Begley's over there, up on Sunset Drive. That's where they got all the dirt. And they come down past my house and past my land, hauling down there to Ingalls. They had to build up so much to have a flood zone. But right before you get to there, they had all that bottom was cornfields. There were baseball fields. We played football and baseball, strawberry patches and stuff. We did quail hunting, all rabbit hunting, all this valley. Going towards Black Mountain, there's a little store there called Rumpel's Grocery Store. They used to ride down there and get our lunch. I'd buy a loaf of bread and a case of, or not a case of, a 6-pack of drinks, knee-highs, 50 cents. That's what we paid. And then we had, right out the street, we had Ed Burt's barn at the river there, where we rode horses. My grandmother used to take me fishing down that creek. That's where I learned to fish at. Then going on up to town. That was Main Strip coming from Broad River. I sat up on my porch in the summertime. That was in the, I guess, early 50s. All that was dirt roads to 1950, about 52. And they'd be like 6 cars coming out number 9 in 30 minutes. So it's changed a lot since in 1950. And come on uptown right there to where Louise is at. All that was just Main Street there. Is a big boarding house. I have pictures of the boarding house there. It was like a two-story boarding house. My uncle lived there. And Louise's, that's where Miss Stepp lived. And then right across the street was that laundromat. Right out the street, all that street had houses built for, people stayed in. And our church out there, Vance Avenue Baptist Church, bought that property, and I was the one who tore one of those houses down and built our parking lot to our church out there, our fellowship building. So then on out Vance Avenue was in the Oaks, called Terry's Estate. We used to go out to Terry's Estate, and I swimmed out there at that thing. They had a bowling alley in that place and a swimming pool. Used to go out there and swim. We'd rent it, and we'd get lost in that big place. And I think in the 50s or something like that, they willed it to somebody, and anyway, they couldn't pay taxes on it, and they gave it to the Episcopal Church. And that's where all that came in. They had a 3-hole golf course out there too on that field. It had a stream, had goldfish in, little bridges over it, just real neat back in. And coming on uptown there, they had several buildings, like I told you about where Quesera was at. It was a grocery store, then a town hall, then they had it leased or rented out for people coming in off the railroad track. Then it would come in a restaurant, and then, not a restaurant, but a hospital for the people that died during if they got sick, they stayed over there, and when they died, they went right across the street in the morgue. But I used to come up in town and sit there, and after all that happened, come a hose mill. I'd come up there in the morning time, people, or at lunchtime, they'd be sitting out all those windows. There's a building right across from Quesera, just like a 3-story building. That's where the hose mill was. Both buildings had both buildings there, big, huge buildings. I think they tore that other building down right in the 70s. But it was a brick building, hose mill, right beside where the rock building's at. And people on the train, going right out of train tracks there, they had a big water tower, because they're back in the steam engines. And they had the trains where they stopped and got the water. And I walked to school out the railroad track and up by the trestle going to school. But going out Vance Avenue right there where Louise is at, was there where we lived at. Cooks, Andy Cook, all of them lived there. And then Miss Dooley, I have a picture of Miss Dooley's house. This is Miss Dooley's house. This is a picture here of our house where Shell Station is now. My mother, my uncle, and me was at the front porch of it. Okay, I've got the back side of the store. You see the house and it's Moses Burgess. They moved in, I think, early 20s from Broad River, and he ground corn for everybody in the valley. They bring their corn. He ground corn for everybody in the valley. They bring their corn. That's where my daddy met my mother at. He rode his horse down here from up towards Ridgecrest with a sack of corn on his horse, and he ground it, and the pavement on it, he would keep a jar of corn. This picture, that's where Sunchurch Bank's at. That's me standing in that field in about 1943. In the background, you can see smoke coming down. That's where the Black Mountain garbage place was. They took their garbage out there and burn it. That's where Bilo's is at now. So that same spot where I was standing, that's my daughter that works in here, Danielle. She's standing in that same spot. Bilo's is in the background. And that little green house, that's Frank Burgess. That's my great uncle. They moved that house over here.
About the tennis courts.
Yep, right. That's a long. That house been there the longest one in that whole thing. I got pictures in there of the whole land around here, and that house is there. In that same spot down there at the bottom part is my grandkids on that same rock I was sitting when they made my picture in that field. I had my grandchildren sit on that same rock in front of SunTrust Bank. SunTrust Bank give me that rock. I have that rock over at my house. My grandmother is holding me, and in the background you can see up in town the depot and also where Case Raw is at now. These pictures here, it's in snow in '58. In the background down there in that snowfield, that's where Ingalls is at now. Okay. And the bottom one is looking down towards where the coming off the interstate. That's where all that interstate is, Cloven. Interstate was built in 1972, 73. These my mother and aunts on horses at that stable down there. I'd just take corn down there. He'd let me keep a horse all day long. This bottom picture is where they tore the building down and had that woodworking place after the hose mill moved out there. That's where SunTrust Bank's at. They stayed there, and then after they left, the woodworking place stayed in there. And then they tore it down as the foundation of it. I had my daughter standing in that place, the same place I stood in 1943, and had my picture made. That's out Louise's. You can see it sidewalk. If you go down there, you can see it's still cracked and bent just the same way it is now. This picture here is me when they give me a bath right where Shelf Station is at her house in that little wash tub. And the bottom picture is Inez Hall. She used to be a hairdresser up here at the top of the hill where Joe's is at. It used to be B's Beauty Shop. She was a hairdresser there, and she had me holding me out there in that field. And probably I was 1943, something like that. It's my mother, Danny Pressley, and Jackie Atkins. They was on the bicycle right there in front of the trailhead. It used to be McMurray's Chevrolet place. This is up here where Harwood's funeral home is. It used to be Harrison's funeral home back years ago. Right across the street there, that used to be a Guff filling station. This picture here is Monte Vista. That's 43, my aunt holding me. Meals, what, 50 and 75 cents? We gave that picture up there at Monte Vista when they were doing, they had it hanging up in Monte Vista there. Oh, here's that filling station. It's first one.
The first one where?
Up here to the top of the hill where the, right across from the bank, where now is accountant office, taxes.
And about what year would this picture have been?
This picture is probably done in the late 40s. This picture in the late 40s. I worked there in about 1960. In 1972, I had a car, and I got gas at 18 cents a gallon. And also I got gas in that same year, $1.25 a gallon. But gas up at the station was like 30 cents a gallon, something like that, 28, 30 cents a gallon. I had a little A model, and I'd stop, get 50 cents worth of gas. That'd go me a long ways. Well, what I remember, you're going out Mesquite-Venus after Christ Mount. It's all dirt road. And all us boys in there, she'd kind of standing up the window there. We thought this haunted. We thought she was a witch. At the airport down in Stafford, in there, he had a plane down there. He put a A-model engine in it. Plane flew around here with a A-model engine in it. There's a girl here in, I think it's in the 50s. Her last name is Boone. She used to wing walk on those planes flying over Black Mountain. We see her up there wing walking there, but they had an airport down here. On the Saturdays, I always went to Pick's Theater, see Roy Rogers or something up at Pick's Theater, and coming out Pick's Theaters, and I think before you was 12 years old, you just had to pay 10 cents. My cousin, he worked at Pick's Theater. He worked at the bowling alley right there on the corner street of Tyson's. Also, he did cleaning for a post office for I don't know how many years. He died just not many months ago. He died in mid-80s. But we come back from that theater. I'd be jumping over every fire hydrant down through where I thought I was a cowboy. And I'd have me a stick horse, and I'd ride it. I called it Trigger. And we played cowboys and Indians all the time. Now the kids has all this Star Wars and all that stuff now. We had all those westerns, Gene Autry and all those things. I remember all those shows and stuff.
Hopalong Cassidy.
Hopalong Cassidy. Hopalong Cassidy, Sky King. You ever remember Sky King? Well, we had no TV till I was 16. I was 13 years old before we got TV, even got a car. I come home from school and had radio on. I'd come in there and listen to Sky King. And that show. So things have changed there. Now the kids are on their cell phones and stuff like that.
I think we were luckier.
Oh yes, we lived in the good old days.
We did.
We did, and we didn't have to worry about anybody breaking in. We walked to school. I walked to school every day till I was, I guess till I got in ninth grade. I walked to school every day, and we'd come out the road, and we'd looking for Coke bottles and stuff. We'd take them down to the drugstore and get 2 cents off those Coke bottles, pause it. We'd buy some candy off of those things. That's where we got some money. We had 3 drugstores here in town. Right across from Depot, had a drugstore. It's tore down now, but we used to go in there. And back then, we didn't have any hamburger places. Not like you get a hamburger. It's in the drugstore. You go in the drugstore and get a sandwich and some ice cream and drink and stuff. One up there where Town Hardware is at, that was a drugstore. The scales are still sitting in the drugstore. I was skinny back there. I was just a little kid. And this girl that worked in there, I knew her real well. She trying to fatten me up. She said, "You come by here after school and I'll give you a milkshake." So I'd go up there every evening. I'd go in there and put a penny in there and see how much I weighed, go back there and drink my milkshake and come back there and see if I gained any weight. And when I turned 16, I got a job at A&P grocery store. There wasn't many jobs in here for boys to work, but A&P down there where Tyson's at. That's where I started working at. And I worked down there about 3 months. I just wanted to work on Saturdays, or Friday evening, Saturday. I hadn't been working there for 3 months, and all those boys is ahead of me, they quit. So it put me up on top list. I was having to work 30-some hours a week and still going to school. And finally, we moved up there where the police department is now, fire department. We moved up there to that store. I worked there for several years. And but going down that street there where Tyson's at, we had right beside Tyson's, we had a post office there. A post office was right beside Tyson. There's a little store there called, I think it was Gray Eagle or something, a little clothing store. And when I was 16, I bought a sweater in there. It cost me $20. That's a lot of money back, probably 56, something like that. And I still got that sweater. I can still wear it after all those years. And right down the street from there, we had Collins Department Store. That's where, Tanner's was at. That was Collins Department Store. It stayed there quite a few years. Then right beside of it was a doctor's office, which I hated going in there, in that doctor's office, getting a shot. when I was a kid. Then after that, it turned into a garden shop. Then it turned into that German restaurant there. Then right down the street below that is a wash spot. Now is a brewery. And on down the street there was Black Mountain Lumber Company. And right across the street there was where Trailhead was. That was Black Mountain Lumber Company too, office. But then it used to be a Ford dealer place. They had a showroom in there where it had 4 cars. And then I remember the ice company up there. I got pictures of ice playing over here. And I didn't know, just the other day, I don't know if y'all saw pictures of that ice back in the old days, the ice company. And there's a man there in a white suit, white shirt, white pants and everything. And Jim Buckner here in town, he told me, he said that man was had one arm. If you look at that picture real closely, you see his arm down there, he got a hook on it. He had that ice, he'd get that ice in there, but I didn't know that till after he told me, and I looked down real close and you see he just only had one there. My uncle, he lived down in a little greenhouse, he worked there, and they delivered coal and ice, people in the valley. And right across the street on a railroad track, they had a big warehouse there. You know, from the depot out there, they had a storage place where they unloaded, I guess, their luggage and stuff stayed in that little warehouse, big building there. See, my family came here in 1870, settled up in North Fork. And he raised 6 sons and 5 daughters. And one of his sons is my granddaddy. And when Eiffel bought the watershed out, they moved him out. And he went up there, showed me the acres up here to Ridgecrest, got the land up there. That's where he grew up. Then going back, all these places here, when the railroad come through. The book I have in my station there is 19 and 15 from the railroad. They sent that booklet out to everybody they could. In that booklet it states, coming to visit Black Mountain. Black Mountain has no mosquitoes. Somebody said they saw one time, but it's not confirmed. And they had always, it's built around the railroad track. Everything's right around the railroad track. The business is all around the railroad track. The bank was down there also. Northwestern Bank was there. Drugstore, a laundromat, all that right there. Shoe store up that street was Shore Shoe Store. But they'd unload the train. You see some of those pictures I got. See all the people come in on that train? It was a busy section there. And all the mail come in. I used to see they have those big wagons out there, and they'd unload the mail on those things. And that's where all the business is at, right around the depot. All the houses, right there where the Cove automobile place, there was big hotel there. That whole big thing was a big motel. All that thing was boarding places. They unloaded the train. They had these horse and buggies, took people to Blue Ridge. That was one of the big things, going to Blue Ridge. Ridgecrest. That's another big thing, and Montreat. All those 3 things was the big things. And people that came here, they loved this place. And they stayed here. And a lot of people now is coming back. That moved away. I've done several this year. That moved away, went to, down Raleigh and places like that, retired. They've come back here to live in Black Mountain. And especially Montreat, all these people at Montreat, they've relatives, and they're all coming back now. I get them from everywhere, Texas, California. I did one a while ago from California. From up north, they're all coming in here. I had one guy come to Texas a couple of months ago, and he said, I'm hunting a place to retire. And you can't grow anything in Texas, it's so hot. And I come through South Carolina, I didn't like it. I ended up in Black Mountain, and I love it. I'm trying to find a place to retire. He said, he said, I've looked around. The average house in Black Mountain, Bum County, is $350,000. He said, in Texas, that would be a mansion in Texas. So right now, we're getting a lot of jobs here too. When I worked in textiles 22 years. I've done hair for 35. But I worked in Old Fort Finishing, and I handled Beacon's account. Beacon's a big employee here. My grandmother lived down here where the Shell station is. They walked a Beacon down the railroad track to work. That's the way they went to work.
Just walked.
Yeah, walked. They had no cars. And we had, Beacon was the biggest thing that built this valley up. Charlie Owens, I knew Charlie Owens, the old man. I knew all his sons and all. I worked with them every week. I went over to see them in textiles. And he bought a plant over, he left Beacon, he bought a plant over in Iceville down the river. Finally, it's called Burleson. Then he bought a place out on Beech Tree. And he took me over and showed me that he bought 65 acres there, building a plant. Half of it he donated to Iceville to build like lakes and baseball fields. So I worked with him 18 years off there, and when the place closed down, or our plant closed down, I'm glad it didn't. I thought I'd just go over and work with him, but nothing would pan out. So I went to him, and I couldn't get a job, and I didn't know what to do. There was no jobs around back then. Everything was closing down. All the textiles had gone. Our plant manager said, listen, said, if you're young enough, go back to school and try another career, because textiles is gone. And I couldn't figure out what I could do. I remember when I was in high school, we took a test to see what I was qualified for. Cosmetology come up on my test. I said, well, I did portraits. If I was in textiles, I did 200 portraits of people. And there's a lot of paper and pictures in Black Mountain News where I did portraits and stuff here. Even when I one article in there in my station where I'm teaching my grandkids to paint art. So I applied to school. And they accepted me down in McDowell County. And I went to school. And when I went to school, I was 2 weeks late getting into school. And I went in there, and I was with all these women. I was the only man in there, and I never had anything, scissors or clippers or rollers in my hands. I didn't know what to do. So one of the girls who works for me now, she come over and helped me get started. I finally got caught up with all the rest of the class. And we went to prison every month to cut people's hair in prison. And I said, I got down there and I didn't have enough hours to cut by myself. So I told the teacher, I said, I want to learn to cut hair with clippers. She said, go over and watch one of the girls. And I went over and cut this half hair. And I said, well, let me see if I can finish it up. You watch me. I finished it up and I cut 15 head of hair. Next month, I had enough hours I could cut by myself. And I went down in there, got me a chair, and all these people come over my thing. The first black guy stood up there, and he said, I understand you're the best. I said, where'd that come from? He said, it's all over the prison. So I got my clipper training down to prison. Somebody said, where'd you get your training at? I said, in prison. It's kind of, they looked at me, it's kind of funny. So I came working with my sister up the street where the ice cream place is, right beside it, and now it's High Country Surveying. Started working up there with her. And in 2 weeks, I was doubling what I was making in textiles after 22 years. I got booked, it's so heavy. And so after about a year, my sister-in-law got sick. She had to quit, and I hired a couple more girls to help me with business. Then I started looking around for me a place to buy myself. I couldn't find anything in the valley under $75,000 for a piece of land where I could buy. And my wife said, well, I went up here to Napa, and they had a little lot beside Napa up here, and I said, who owns this lot? The man from Marion, T.R. Klein. I called him up and I said, will you sell me a lot right outside Napa? And he said, no, but I'll sell you a lot right down here the street. There's a fueling station right down here below where that home is right there. It used to be a funeral home. I went down and looked at it, and my friend said, hell, that'd be a good place. So I said, okay. My wife said, if it's meant for us to buy it, let it not be over $20,000. So I said, how much you want for it? He said, how much you need? I said, I can get by with 60-foot frontage. He said, we have some of our investors. We'll let you know. 2 weeks later, he called me up and said, Danny, I'll take $20,000 for it. I said, okay, I'll take it. Went home and told my wife, I said, I bought the piece of land down for $20,000. She said, where are we going to get $20,000 at? I said, the Lord will provide. If meant for us to buy it, He'll furnish the money. Next morning, I was doing this lady's hair. She said, I said, I'm building a shop right down the street there. And she said, Danny, I've known you for a long time. I worked with her husband in textiles. She said, if you need to borrow $15,000 or $20,000, I got it for you. I went home to my wife and I said, got the money. So I started my first shop where CVS is at now. I built my shop in there. I was in there for 14 years. This man called me up one day. I was off, and he said, you own Self-Image? And I said, yeah. He said, would you consider about selling it? And I said, no, I don't want to sell it. He said, why don't you just think about it? And I'll come back in 2 weeks. And I thought it was a hoax, sir. You know. He said, just name the price as high as you want it. I went home and told my wife. I said, somebody offered to tell me just to name the price as high as I wanted. He wanted to buy my business. I got thinking, I said, well, I'll just name a big high price on it. So I got down there, and he come back in 2 weeks. We had a meeting. I said, well, okay, that's what I want. I want you to buy me a piece of property twice as big as I got. And then you pay me for my business. He said, okay, we'll think about it. So we started negotiating from there. He said, what piece of property you want? I said, I named a couple pieces in Black Mountain. I said, I'd like to have a property right beside of me. He said, I'll work on that. So he went to T.R. Klein. He said, I want to buy a piece of property right here. T.R. Klein said, no, I promised that to Danny. He said, it is for Danny. He knew CVS had more money than I had. And he said it'd be $130,000. So they agreed on buying it for me. Then we were back and forth, and I said, I want to have 6 months to build my shop. And they said, no, we don't give anybody over 30 days. When we buy the business, it's 30 days to move. I said, no, I won't. There, and he kept arguing around, and I said, and I want you to develop that property for me. He said, oh, we can't do that. So I said, that's it. That's my final offer. So I told the girls, I said, forget about it. We go back to work now. I turned it down. Next day he called me up. He said, Danny, this is what we'll do. We'll buy that property for you. We will not develop it for you, but we'll give you $30,000 to develop it for yourself. But if you don't spend that much, $30,000, I want it back, some of it back. And we'll pay you for your thing. And we'll not give you 6 months. We'll give you 3 months. I said, I'll take it. I was a contractor on the town, let me be the contractor. I drew the plans on the shop. And they passed it and let me be the contractor on it. I hired my men, and we moved in here on the 90th day. So we've been in here 20 years now, or about 21. So that's the way I got started in this business. So all these places around here, my house, the land down there when they had the number 9 come through there, where the Huddle House was, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, the fueling station, they come up to my house and wanted dirt. I give them dirt to build a huddle house and everything. All that whole property down, I give them dirt for my house. Didn't charge them a penny. And then I give them dirt to build the SunTrust Bank. And had all this here done. And CVS gave me dirt to fill in here from back there to the railroad track. Then when they built this bank here, they come to see me and said, you know where we can get rid of this dirt up here? I said, yeah, I need some over at my house. I built my daughter a house. I need some for her backyard. So they took 85 loads of dirt from up here at the bank over to my house. So we've been swapping dirt around here in town all around. I like to say back then it was good old days. It was nothing like growing up here in Black Mountain. I guess I was in the best days it was. You know, I didn't know I was poor. You know, back there we didn't, nothing. We didn't know I was poor. Didn't have a car, didn't have TV. But we worked outside. That's where I did all the stuff. Instead of kids nowadays on the computer playing games and stuff like that, I was outside. I made everything I had. I made, my uncle would give me a bicycle. It was in pieces. I put that bicycle together. I rode it till I was 16 years old. I bought parts from the West Nocto down here. And built that bicycle, and that's what I rode. I made my bow and arrows. I did a lot of hunting and fishing. My grandmother would walk with me down the creek. We'd walk all the way up North Fork, and I'd ride my bicycle, and she'd walk from here. She was in her 80s. She sat around like over Lake Tomahawk, straw hat and cane pole all day long fishing. But she's the one that got me started fishing here. We'd go up there. You had a lake up North Fork called Tom Brown's Lake. It's cow pasture now, but we used to go up there and fish there. But that's what I enjoyed growing up. I worked around, climbed up. We played in the woods. We did everything up in the mountains and stuff. Just outdoorsmen. That's where I think all the kids nowadays, if my grandkids, they're living outdoors and stuff now. They're fishing and they're hunting. I was going on a fishing trip with this boy out to near Robbinsville. Ever heard of Santigla? We went out there one night in his truck, in his boat, and we was going to camp a couple of days on the lake. He pulled up a boat dock. He took the boat off in the water, and he had to drive a boat across the lake. And I had to take a trailer all the way around that, called a dragon tail, around the old windy road. I got in his truck and trailer, and I pulled it out on the highway, and I looked up there in the rearview mirror, and this car pulled up behind me. I said, oh boy. I went on up the road, and I said, I pulled over, and it wouldn't ever pass me. And I slowed down, every place, you know, that curved road, trying to let them by, and never would there. I said, when I get up the top of this mountain, maybe they'll go on. I cut down this old road called Graveyard Trail, or go down there to the graveyard, where some campsites is at. I cut down that road. I looked up, and they cut down right behind me. They was right behind me, all the way down that road. Got down to the graveyard. I pulled over on the side road, let them back, and I looked through there, and they stopped right behind me. And this is dumb, me getting out of the car, go back there and see what they wanted. I went back there, opened the door, went back there, there's nobody back there. I said, where did they go to? It's nowhere, it just vanished, just like a car vanished. I went back up there, started getting in the truck. I looked in the glass window. I had that cap on, it has two lights on it that I've been there when I was working on the boat, and I forgot to turn them off. Well, I looked up and it had two lights shining in that glass. But every time I look up in that mirror, it looked like that car was right behind me. That was the scariest thing I ever had. All North Fork below the dam was just like it is behind the watershed, all virgin hemlocks and stuff. The river was so pretty down there. I remember camping down there, and I'd get up on big old rocks 10 foot high, looking down in the water, and the water looked like about a foot deep, and it'd be 6 foot. These big fish swim around in the water and stuff in there. And I remember going up to the watershed when they was building it, looking in it, while they were doing grading. I remember that in like 1950. And then I think when they moved the graveyards over at Mountain View now, and I went to first homecoming at Mountain View. That's where all my people was buried, up there at Mountain View. And so I was about 11 years old. I was always wanting to get in the creeks and stuff. While they was eating up there, I was down in that little pasture at that little creek. I saw a fish down there, a trout down there. I took a rock and I threw it down there and killed that trout. I come up there carrying that trout, and I was proud of that thing. I ran the table. I said, "Look at what I caught." One of the men said, "Danny, you better watch that warden stand right over there." Scared me to death. I went and hid that trout. So some funny things back in, but that's on YouTube. You can look at the whole thing about the watershed on YouTube, where I did the narrating, and my wife did too, of it, and it's very interesting.
How would it be listed on YouTube?
It'd be listed North Fork Watershed, not Reservoir, North Fork Watershed. 93 tour. 93.
93.
Ben Keith, he's one that put it on YouTube for me.
Yeah.
But we looked at it. It lasts about 2 hours.
Wow.
But it's a spring and the fall. Lake was down 25 feet. And
What year was it?
93.
93. Drought.
I think November drought. And Bob Brown, he took me down in the lake. And we was looking for Indian artifacts. And he had me find one Indian arrowhead down there in the bottom of that lake was made out of granite. He said he had gallons of it, so when the lake would come up and wash in the banks, he'd pick them up, and there's banks. And so his brother, it was kind of watching over a gravestone down there. It caught me 2 times. Fishing, hunting. One time over number 9, I was fishing at a little pond down there in Northcott's Pond. And he come down there, hard down there, said, hard, and we took off running. I run up top that mountain, stand up there watching him walking up down that road. And after I thought he'd gone, I stood up and I said, "Come on, he's gone." He was standing right in front of us, and he said, "All right, boys, come on down here." So I went down there, and I was supposed to go down there and talk to Northcott next day, but my friend I was with, his father-in-law was worked for the sheriff's department, so he got me out of it. So I had some time, but that tape is very good. It shows all that stuff back then. But it's also, Bob showed me where my grandparents' house was up there in the lake when it's down. He showed me what spot where he's at. There's nothing there, no foundation there, but he showed me where our house was at.
It was quite a little settlement. It was
It
one of
was.
the most populated areas of the Black Mountain area up there.
Well, see, every house up there had a little trash dump. We'd go through a trash dump. I had all kinds of souvenir Coke bottles and door handles and stuff. I had to go to Connolly's house. I found a porcelain door handle out of it. Back in the old days, all my kin people were alcoholics, or they made liquor up there in the watershed. And but they forget all that stuff back in. My daddy told me back up in that church at Mountain View at the watershed, there's a bullet hole back in the door of that building. So I didn't know, and I asked Bob Brown back about it. He said, sure enough, there was a bullet hole back there. The Burnett, and I guess got in a fuss, and somebody shot a hole there. My granddaddy they had a hickory tree in front of that church up there in the watershed, and he just killed squirrels out of that hickory tree in front of that church.
Well, this was very interesting. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.